Recording is on. Hi, everyone. This is Lin Bouthillier from linbouthillier.com. Welcome to episode number 33 of my ongoing series entitled Monogamous at 13. Oh, that's got to fix my camera angle just a tiny bit. Sorry about that. Okay, so if you haven't already, please hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell buttons so that you can be notified if I put up new content. And I would also really enjoy it if you would please share my information with whomever you choose on any platform that you choose, because if you find value in this channel, it would please me greatly if others could find value in this channel. The content here is for trauma survivors to help understand that we can go a little bit backwards in time for the purpose of re-examining the circumstances of our childhood and our young life, our adolescence, our young adulthood, so that we can track how it came to be that we entered into perhaps some unhealthy, toxic, or abusive relationships. So today's topic is again a very uncomfortable topic. It's actually hard for me to talk about it. It is really important that you be anchored and grounded while viewing this material. And if it becomes too much for you, please shut off the video and walk away. There's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't hurt me in the least. And I want you to be safe. I want you to not be triggered. Triggered into what? A trauma response. Okay, when that moment where we feel that we're disconnecting a little bit from ourself, our environment, and from others. And to put it very succinctly, a trauma response does not feel good. No one wants to be triggered into a trauma response. So when it happens, obviously we can do some meditation. We can do some grounding exercises. We can take a walk, we can take a shower, we can run our hands under cold water, we can touch ice cubes, we can touch sandpaper, we can use any grounding object, that we would like to use. And I just had to reach for mine because I forgot to pick it up again before I started the video. All different things, whatever works best for you is the right thing to do. So, and also mindfulness meditation, where we are connecting with our body. And some practitioners refer to it as getting back in our body or remaining in our body. That's what they're referring to as groundedness. Okay, so today's subject is actually, when you look at the big picture, it's about, excuse me, it's about power and control. If you went back and watched every one of my episodes, other than the first one, I think that you would find that all of them are really at their core are about power and control. And this is another one that is actually about power and control, but the topic is specifically the family rule of prejudice. This causes me a lot of pain. I don't like to speak about it because, well, none of us wants to believe that they came from a background, from a family system that was steeped in prejudice. But I most certainly did. I can't recall what episode it was when I talked about marginalization. And that was me describing how I knew for certain that my family participated in marginalization of my parents, Eloise, Reginald, and all 6 of their children. Because Eloise married somebody who her parents didn't feel was appropriate for her because he wasn't the right kind of Irish. And so to me, this is an important topic because many of us don't want to look there. Many of us don't want to see our family as having the capability of being prejudiced or a family that doesn't accept certain people, certain groups of people, certain what they consider types of people. And in my family, anyone who was not a white Northern European descended Catholic Christian who was heterosexual and preferred to marry and have a nuclear family of a husband, a wife, and children. Anybody who didn't fit that profile was considered to be a lousy person. If you didn't fit that profile, then you had something that was wrong with you, and the children were being educated and programmed is the best word for it. It truly was programming to see it that way, to see their world that way. They were stamping their worldview onto their children at an extremely young age. And again, as I've said in other videos, when a child who is an older child in the family is being imprinted with these things, the youngest children who may not even have language yet are already being imprinted with it. It is very, very deeply rooted psychological imprinting. So this one had me confused, the prejudice, at a very young age. The prejudice and marginalization of ourselves had me confused. It took me a while to see it and to sort it out and to get it. But I also understood at a young age, they expect us to perpetuate this in others. They were grooming us to do this with our children when we would someday have children, which they already decided we were going to have because we were female. And, you know, five of their children were female, and it was understood at a very young age, your job is to grow up and have babies. So, so the question, you know, what did their prejudice look like in daily life? Comments at the TV that were meant for us to hear, shouting things at the newscaster, saying if they walked into a room and we were watching, let's say, for instance, a sitcom that was based in New York City or Chicago or something like that, and it was a Black family living in an apartment, and it was a comedy. Particularly Eloise would walk in, stop, look at us and say, turn it. You're not watching that. That's not going to be on in my house. She did that in adulthood too. She did that in adulthood. She, you know, I'm getting ahead of myself chronologically because I'm trying to do this in chronological age, but I can allude for just a moment to the fact that there was a show on television, I'm sure many of you will recognize it, where an older white man was raising his own biological daughter and then two little boys that were African-American boys that were his adopted children. And in adulthood, years after that TV show went off the air, I put that TV on, the TV on that adorable show. And nope, Eloise was not having it. You turn that right this minute, and here I am in my 50s, and she would not allow that to be on the television. So, so as I was, excuse me for a moment. I have a very clear visual of something that happened. It was, my father was on vacation, and we were going someplace just for the day. And that year we hadn't gone on a camping trip. It was after our camping days were done. We didn't go anymore. But one of the reasons we didn't go anymore is because most of the girls had hit puberty, and Reginald no longer wanted any men in a campground looking at us, and that is why camping stopped. But we were going out for the day. He was taking us to go see some sights in our local area, and everyone had gotten ready. The food was loaded in the car, the drinks were loaded in the car, all our supplies for the day were loaded, and everyone got in the car, and we were waiting for Eloise to come out of the house. And when she got in the car starts backing down the driveway, but we had to wait for a man of color to cross the end of our driveway before we could back out. And Reginald backed the car out on the street, and he was looking at that man just walking down the side of the road. And Eloise said, "Uh-oh." And he said, "Yeah, I know, we're not going anywhere. He just saw us leave, and now he knows we're not home." Could see the whole family's in the car. And now we've got a problem because we're about to be robbed. So sorry, kids, we're going back home. We're pulling in the driveway. We pulled in the driveway, and everybody got out and took everything into the house, and that entire day trip was absolutely canceled because my mother and father could not handle the fact that a man of color walked down the street while they were leaving their house. And they immediately began to think the absolute worst of him. Envisioned our house. I'm certain of it. I'm certain that they envisioned their house being stolen from while they were out, and they would never have been able to enjoy themselves and have a great time knowing that we were being robbed back in our hometown by this man who was walking down the street. It put a pain in my heart. I am 60 years old, and I still carry that pain in my heart. That is the people that I come from, and they wanted us to believe that they had just, this is really important, they wanted us to believe that they had just rescued us from a terrible fate of losing possibly everything that we had. And so I can tell you, it left a massive impression on me. I have to ground myself a little bit. I am starting to become activated. You could tell when my tone changes, my words come faster. I'm being activated into a trauma response just from that. Glad I recognize it. But that is how, that is a vignette. That is a little view into that family and that activity on that day at that time, to see this is how parents teach children to hate or to feel mistrust or to feel trepidation or to feel fear, to have anxiety, all through installing racism, prejudice, and the capacity to marginalize into their children. So my older sisters, when and again, I'm still at the age 11. Age 11 for me was a significant age because an awful lot of change was happening at that time. And a big portion of that I do recognize is it wasn't really change that was happening. It was that I was being switched on. That's more accurate. They weren't changing. I was changing. My body was changing, and my consciousness is being, the switch is being flipped on from child consciousness to older child consciousness, which means social consciousness, social awareness, awkwardness, being aware that my thoughts and my feelings don't match the big people. Oh boy, I'm starting to be a medium-sized person, and my thoughts do not match what they are telling me that I should think. There's a disparity between what I'm actually thinking and what they require me to think, or all of us to think. It wasn't individual. It was almost always the whole group. So our older sisters, some of them were at dating age now, and they were being told regularly which ethnicities were off limits for dating or marriage. And again, anybody who's in the vicinity of these people while they're teaching this to their children is absorbing what they're teaching. Younger kids are absorbing what they're teaching to the older kids. It's always that way. They were extremely clear to say which countries of origin were completely unsuitable matches for their children. So if you meet somebody whose family originated, their ancestors originated from a certain part of the globe, and they didn't like that certain part of the globe, then it was a no-go. You are not going to be allowed to date that person. They frequently emphasized that they were in control of our relationships and that their prejudices would always be a consideration in any friendship or love match. So it's also trickling down into friendships. And what they meant by that was there are certain families with certain racial backgrounds, certain ethnicities that we don't even want you being friends. We don't want you going to their house. We do not want their kids at our house. And there were some kids in our neighborhood that we absolutely knew that they were just barely under their breath holding back on the comments of disapproval. And these kids could come down the road and play at our house. We could play in the backyard or in the field with the neighbor kids between our houses. But they weren't coming to dinner and they weren't coming inside the house. It was just, we just were told, we knew it. And so we were told exactly which boys on our road and in our neighborhood were on the list of never. You are never going to go on a date with them. When you become old enough to date, you can just pass them right by because they have families that originated from the countries that we don't allow. We don't allow them to taint our children. And so my parents would conduct conversations in the vehicle on long trips. Oh my goodness. Like I said in other videos, we would go camping. Sometimes we would go way, way up in Canada. They took us up to North Bay in Ontario, and not frequently. I think we went all the way up to North Bay one time, but we went to Canada frequently, up north of Toronto. But on these long trips, I mean, a couple hours to a few hours long trips, or in some cases, an all-day trip, like an 8 to 9 hour road trip when we set out to go there, to go camp, or to head home. But my parents would conduct conversations in the vehicle on long trips. And at that time, it was a big Ford Econoline van. And at the table at home, whether we were in a trip on a long ride or at home, and when it was at home, these would invariably be taking place in our dining room at our table with every child in their seat. They would tell us all about the families of certain persuasions that they couldn't stand, and why they couldn't stand them, and why they were right. They were right to feel that way. They had the right to feel that way, and they did not see that. I mean, these people considered themselves Christians, and they absolutely rejected other people. And we're proud to do so. So they gave examples of relatives. This is how particularly Eloise would point out that because one of the children might ask, well, what harm does it do? Why if you don't mind me asking, which they always did, but could you please just explain how, can you show me what it was like if someone in your family did it? If they married somebody that they weren't supposed to marry? Excuse me. And she would give examples of relatives who married into those families, and everything went badly, and the entire family talked about that in-law behind their back, and that in-law was always considered someone you must never trust or admire. They had an uncle who had been in the military. He had served honorably in World War II. And he had been an interpreter of French for a very famous, well-known general. And that man, when he left service and came back home after the war for civilian life, he married a woman that Eloise's parents had pretty much had on the never ever list. And so they now have this new aunt, and everyone in the family knows that that aunt is descended from people who were from one of the countries on the imaginary list of bad countries. And so she was spoken about by the family in very disparaging terms, but she didn't know. No, they were extremely kind and nice to her face. She would be present at the dining table for holiday dinners. I have seen a couple photographs of that lovely woman, and she was known as a person that you couldn't trust, and she was considered to be someone that you really shouldn't admire, simply because of her family's country of origin. And so Eloise and Reginald perpetuated every stereotype that they knew of or made up. There were some that I believe they absolutely made up and created for themselves. They would point to a house in the neighborhood if we're driving down a road and say, look, there, look over there, look, they're into organized crime, and their sons are off limits to you. You don't ever want to date one of their boys. Nope, not going to happen. Mixed race couples were a great problem for them, and I would hear them use disparaging names, epithets for mixed race children, and my heart really felt that. I felt ashamed of them. I really did. I felt shame for them. The phrase they would use is, "Oh, I feel so sorry for the kids. It's always so hard on the kids. What are they doing that for?" And I really could not wrap my little mind around that. It was painful. It was painful for me to witness. And the compassion in my heart was thinking, what must it be like for the children to live in a world where people like this exist, where they very possibly have discord in their families. They very possibly have disapproval from strangers, from people who sit in judgment of others. And I just felt that it was completely and utterly gross and unfair, and it broke my heart to learn that this was in my world. If I could sum it up, I would say that was the hardest part for me. It hurts that this is in our world. And it was agonizing for me at times to witness. And again, I don't mean to be disparaging to the people who experienced it firsthand. The people in our world that daily are dealing with that particular type of cruelty and failure to love and accept and honor all human beings. Okay, so certain religions were off limits too. We were very much Catholic children, and we were being taught in the catechism. We were being taught at home with our parents that interfaith marriages were unacceptable. Now we're way past Vatican II in the history timeline, but it took a lot of families a very long time to tighten their death grip on the rules that they were raised with, the Catholic religion laws, so to speak, that you couldn't attend. You know, my parents were from the generation where you could not attend a religious ceremony inside of a religious building or outside of it of any other religion other than Roman Catholicism. When my mother's dearest friend got married when she was just out of high school, my mother was asked to be the maid of honor in that wedding. And she went to her parents and told them that she intended to do that. And they said, no way, that is not happening, because if we allow our child to break a church law and go against God's law, which is to them the same thing, the Catholic Church's laws were ordained by God, and therefore they were God's rules, and you could not break them. And they said, we're not going to let one of our children who lives in our house engage in that, because that puts a mortal sin on our souls, and you will not be doing that to us. You will not be doing that to us. And so what they did was they said, you cannot attend that wedding. Not only can you not be the maid of honor in that wedding, but you will not be at that wedding. You will not attend. And Eloise told me that, well, she had to follow the rules. She was sad about it, but she had to go to her friend and tell him, no, the church law says that I can't do that. And my parents say that I can't do that. Therefore, I have to give you a no on that. So Eloise's brother, years later, married a woman who was Jewish. And she was a beautiful woman, a kind, compassionate, lovely human being. And it was a beautiful match because they were both kind, lovely human beings. But that brother knew that he had to have a quiet wedding without his family present, because they were all going to be considering this. They might not say it out loud because we're so far past the relaxation of the Catholic Church's rules about interfaith marriages. But the family considered it to be like, yeah, I don't know if it's even going to work out. But he chose her, so, you know, we're going to have to go along with this. So things had settled, so to speak, but there was the open disapproval, or the thinly veiled disapproval is what I should call it. I remember standing in my family's home with my mother, and she was talking about that marriage that had just happened. And she said that marrying someone outside of your religion, outside of Christianity, and having a non-religious ceremony, having a short notice wedding with no family invited to it. And I'm saying the exact same family that would be conscientious objectors who wouldn't even show up or send a gift or truly with their hearts open to this couple and to wish them truly a beautiful future and the very best that married life has to offer. No, they wouldn't have received that. And yet here's Eloise saying, well, I hope it works out for them, but it's a good thing that they went to get married by a justice of the peace, because there's really probably nobody that would have married them in a religious ceremony anyways. They probably had no choice. But the whole family talked you know what about it behind their backs and pretended to be kind and approving of them to their faces after they were married. That lovely couple came into my home, our home, several times that I remember. Not often, but several times they did. And we went to their house several times. And honestly, I could feel the discomfort. It was awkward. We went to their home before they had children for a party that was to celebrate both of our grandparents' birthdays, which fell in a calendar month that was close to Christmas. And so we would have a Christmas / birthday party at that house. And there was a Christmas tree and a beautiful menorah in the living room. And they were embracing their own heritage, their own religion, their own cultures, and were making it very clear. I'm not saying they did it so because we were coming over. No, not at all. But with us in the house, it was a very clear statement to us that, hey folks, we're not hung up on this. we have it worked out. We have our abode exactly the way we want it, and we don't really care too much about what you think about it. That was the message that I was seeing at that age. Yep, we're doing our thing, and we are not ashamed. And this is it. Like it or leave it. And so, you know, as a kid on the inside, I'm going, yeah, this is good. This is really awesome. It felt very, very warm and welcoming at their house, which is something that I cannot say about the house that I grew up in. So duplicity, falseness, cover up of prejudice and marginalization and racism. But it didn't just stop there. Oh, no. It was everythingism, meaning if it's anything other than Northern European descent with Catholicism, Roman Catholicism as your religion, and being, you know, obviously a white person. That's what they wanted, white people. I understand that there are Black families who are Northern European. They live there. They obviously, you know, you can go to, my parents could not conceive of the idea that if you actually went to the countries that they preferred people that we marry to be descended from, they absolutely, yes, they have people of color. They have people of other ethnicities living there have for a long time, and they are not, my family is just not getting that. That's inconceivable to them. I think that my parents would not have been able to wrap their minds around, let's say if they went to visit London. My parents didn't travel out of the country except Canada, but if they went to London, they would expect England to be absolutely devoid of people of color. I think they really believed that there were no people of color anywhere in that part of the world. Same with Ireland, same with Scotland, same with Wales. Yeah, all of it. So so when we get to an age where we begin to develop our own social consciousness, and for me it was somewhere around the start of puberty, maybe slightly younger. This all rings false within us. And we might begin to have pushback against it and these rules, against these concepts and these rules. And it might only be internal pushback against it. Like sitting at the table and while they're giving a lecture about this topic and how we must never marry a man of a certain persuasion, a certain ethnicity, a certain cultural background, a different religion, all these things. While you're hearing that, your insides could be going, you are so full of shit. Oh, no, I'm never gonna think this stuff. I'm never gonna believe this stuff. My little truth meter inside of me is going boing. It's going crazy. And it feels really good. That is a fantastic feeling to know that my internal world was full of oppositional defiance for this stuff. Because, as I say sometimes, my belief is that we are the big five, which is love, light, truth, compassion, and human decency. None of what they were saying in any way blends with those big five concepts and embodiments. It just doesn't, and it never will. So this is a really big piece of this puzzle. And no matter what any of us have been exposed to in this realm by other people while we were in childhood, especially when the bricks were being laid and the mortar was being put between the layers of bricks, and it's all going to solidify, that is the moment where we're being exposed to group thought and group belief. That's the foundation that was actually being laid here, was group thought, group belief. We'll tell you what to think. We will expect of you to think this way after we tell it to you. And then if you stray from that group thought and group belief, if anything oppositional to it comes out of your mouth, or if it comes out through your behavior, then now we've got a problem. And we're all going to be back at the table and sitting you down and talking to you about why it's wrong, why you're wrong, why we consider this defiance, and why you are bad, and why you should feel ashamed, and what a big problem you have caused for us. This is what they were letting us know. All of these words can be boiled down to, we want group thought, we want group belief, we want group behavior, and you can just fall in and march to our drum beat. And if you do anything autonomous, if you break away from any of this and act upon your own feelings, your own beliefs, your own thoughts, your own ideals, your own values, then you're not really going to be accepted by us. You're not going to be one of the blank kids. You're just not going to be. In this series, I have never given my family a last name. So I will do it now. How about if I make our family's last name the oh dear. I'll make us the Connors. I'll call our family the Connors. Okay. So Eloise and Reginald both came from highly narcissistic and prejudiced families, and ironically, Reginald's family was marginalized. His family was feeling the open prejudice of Eloise's family. They were against Reginald's family, as I've said numerous times now, for being the wrong kind of Irish people, and for being poor, and for having a person who is in very obviously publicly seen alcohol addiction, and for the family just having all kinds of social issues. And so it wasn't just their nationality or their ethnic background or their cultural background. It wasn't that only. It was all the other factors blended in, where we are seeing your faults and we are judging you, and we sit higher above you in a position where we have every right to do this to you. And we're very proud of the fact that we are above you. So they equated prejudice. This was hard for me as a child, even as an older child. It was hard for me to sort this out. All of this prejudice they have interwoven into their faith. They have held these prejudices up as being soldiers for God, to uphold God's laws and God's preferences, almost like it's prophecy that they were divinely ordained to perpetuate these hateful rules, these hateful ideas, these hateful concepts, all of it. They felt divinely ordained to pour these painful, awful, hurtful prejudices into their children. And they did make it very clear that if you didn't go along with this form of thought, that you're not quite Christian, because you're not following God's laws. See, what they're saying is, it's not wrong for those people to exist, but they're supposed to be somewhere else out of our view. And they're supposed to have children only with each other, not with us. And they're not supposed to be really fully embraced by our culture in any way. They're supposed to be othered and marginalized. Don't you get that yet? That my parents, when we were young, I remember elementary school social studies and doing that at the table and talking out loud with my sister, who was 1.5 years older than me, but 1 grade above me. And I'll never forget it. It was talking about the melting pot, that United States of America's nickname is the melting pot, because we have so many people from long established ancient cultures who are coming to a baby country, a newly birthed country, and they're making up the populace of this country, and that we have the privilege of having these beautiful cultures. The people who come are carrying their cultures in them and bringing them here to make this magnificent, what's the word, a mosaic of beautiful cultures and beautiful religions and all different beliefs of every kind and practices of every kind. And just, we're as children seeing in the social studies book things that right now I can say might not have jived 100% with the concepts of the religious organization whose building it was, whose classroom we were in. They couldn't do much about the social studies that was being taught. So what was being taught to me in elementary school and upper elementary school was that is the the standardized education, the textbooks. What's in this social studies book at a Catholic school is very much going to be the same as what the public school children were learning in social studies. I truly believe that. I don't think there was much of that was different. So we're learning about the melting pot and I'm talking about it with Lori Alice at the table, and that gets Reginald's ire up. Oh my goodness. He immediately chimes in and says, melting pot, my you know what? No, no, they're teaching all this stuff to you kids. They're pouring all this stuff into you, all this liberal garbage about how we're supposed to embrace all these other cultures. And he was just as racist as a person could be, and he absolutely believed that that was bringing the ruination of the country, and that means he had extremely flawed ideas about the origins of the country and the truth about the United States of America. He was showing that he did not understand the processes and the circumstances under which the country was founded in the first place. I believe he was making it up in accordance with his own beliefs and ideas. And I don't think that's unusual for people to do. I really don't. I think that's a very common flawed premise and false, an actual giant stack of false beliefs. So yeah, they equated their prejudice as being soldiers for God, and that I think that I don't think it's uncommon at all for people who are even a little bit racist to somehow weave God's name into it and make it so that it's what God's laws are. It's what God says. It's in the Bible, and we should always go by what is being taught by God. So if God frowns on this, then absolutely all of us are supposed to frown on this. So yes, they most definitely perpetuated their hateful rules, and couldn't see it any other way. And again, Lori Alice, this comes back to the liberal child in the household. Lori Alice was the person in the household, the child who pushed back against these ideas. And that made her more and more reinforced as the liberal child. Well, she would be at the dinner table saying, well, I don't understand what's wrong with the other people. I don't understand what's wrong with the people from that country, because I really like kids whose families are descended from that country, and they're my friends, and I don't have any reason to see them as bad. And again, the pushback would be just absolutely overwhelming, where the reply to that is, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just a kid. And as long as you live with us, you will see it our way. And we don't want to hear another word about that. And so there was always the power and control where they could just pull that lever of power and control, bring the whole conversation to a screeching halt, have the final word, and then change the subject. And it's almost always how it went. So I don't think it ever occurred to not just Eloise and Reginald, but to the whole entire extended family. I don't think it ever occurred to these people that other people who were not children at their dinner table, but just other people in the world, found their views repugnant. I don't think that they had awareness that anyone out in the world found their views to be repugnant. I think that that is the narcissism. You know, again, it's a narcissistic family system and has been for generations. And to the best of my knowledge, it would have to be for them to have come up through their childhood into adulthood, raising their own family now with such prejudice. You can't be prejudiced without being highly narcissistic. It's just not possible. It's just hand in glove. It just goes that way. And so they were shaping our views and doing everything they could to place their limitations, boundaries, their views and expectations onto us. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But here's the part where if you're listening to this and this is striking a chord with you, if this is causing you to have anything come up inside of yourself where you're going, oh gosh, yes, it was like that at my house. Yes, it was like that inside of our car. Yes, my family members, and it might not have been your mother and father, it might have been your grandmother and your grandfather, or your parents' favorite uncle, or whoever it was. If somebody in your life was taking their little funnel and, you know, their imaginary funnel and poking it through your top of your head and pouring their beliefs into your mind, it's the reason, even though it goes against everything that we believe and feel to be true and right and honorable, while we're a child, if anyone is doing this to us, there is a cost. There is an actual currency involved in this, and that we will give that currency up. We will be forfeiting it, just taking our little hands and shoving it across the table to this big, huge pile of our own values, our autonomy, our acceptance, meaning them accepting us, our feeling wanted, our feeling of being loved, our feeling of being validated, our feeling of being heard, our feeling of being seen, our feeling of being connected to. This whole pile of all the coins of those things, to disagree with them and stand up against the racism to our child self, is to take your forearms together like this and just push that pile of things right across the table, right in front of them, and say, there, okay, I've just paid. That's what it's like when the parent or the primary caregiver is a prejudiced and racist, sexist, xenophobic, homophobic, transphobic, all of the different phobics that you can be. The hatefulness inside the heart, the hatefulness inside their mind, the hatefulness that lives in their entire being, in their consciousness, and their toxic stew inside there that's just bubbling and belching and just being gross all over the place in there. That's what we lose, that pile of stuff that we just slid over the table. That's what we lose if we disagree with them. For many of us as children, that was too expensive. It was literally just too expensive for us. It was expensive emotionally, relationally, biologically, and psychologically. Too expensive for us. And so we find a way to feel what we feel inside while appearing to tolerate their garbage. And we do that for as long as we can to hang on and survive in that environment. And these people actually think that what they're saying is getting into us, and that we're going, yeah, you got it, yep, yep, I'm gonna choose my partner based on what you say, and not on my feelings of love or connection, or and just any of the good stuff that would happen if we were beginning to be old enough to fall in love with something or someone, or pardon me, or as a child if we're developing a friendship relationship with another child that happens to be on the no list. Um, yeah, it's hard for us. It really is. It's very hard for us as kids to reconcile that and to just live under that cloak of heaviness, where someone else's very dark, very corrupt values are cast over us, and we are expected to live as if we fully accept it in order to not have to slide all those things across the table, like I just gave in that visual a moment ago, without having to do forfeiture of love, security, acceptance, being seen, being heard, being held, being cared about, being taken care of. And we already had seen that the scapegoated child in the family, who had free thinking values, she had freedom of thought, and she did at times express her freedom, her autonomy, her opinions. And I was always cheering for her on the inside, but also going, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. They're going to hurt you. They're going to push you away more. They're going to reject you more. They're going to perhaps love you a little bit less. And I didn't want to see that happen. So on the inside, at the dinner table, while she's pushing back against their values, and in the car where she's the little voice that's piping up and saying, I'm not so sure I agree with that, because I kind of think that all people are good. I'm like, oh, no, you don't, little girl. So, yeah, well, what happens in us? What does this cause in us? We're inching towards the part in my story where I become a little 13-year-old girl who is deeply involved, or becoming deeply involved. It began at age 13, but I'm becoming deeply involved with someone who is toxic, controlling, and abusive. And I'm being primed for that. All of these things are priming me for that. But you can be absolutely certain that this girl was on the inside saying, but he's not on the list of forbidden ethnicities and religions and background. He's not forbidden. He's probably going to be accepted someday, long after this relationship has begun, and I decide to roll it out for parental review. I was thinking about that. Yes, absolutely. I needed to know inside that this person is, if this person is potentially going to be my partner, my long-term partner, yeah, I kind of do want this person to, whoever it is, to fall into this category, because I don't want to live like the way my aunt is lived, with everybody talking about her behind her back, and how my great aunt was living with all of, I wasn't even born yet or thought of yet, but all of her in-law family, her marital family, they do not accept and embrace her, and they gossip about her behind her back. And even the next generation after she's deceased is going to hear about how she did not belong in or fit in that family. And I can tell you, Eloise even maligned her for having wealth. Even that was something that was, no, we just aren't having that here. but I will do an episode coming in the future. Perhaps the next one will be about the family's view about wealth and finances. But so if you're like me and you have had this early programming in your life to be non-accepting, to be intolerant, to be prejudiced, to be all the different groups of people phobic, to have mistrust for people who don't look and act and worship and believe and live exactly like you. Yeah, it does create a pain. It is a trauma. And some of you may not consider that to have been part of your trauma, but it is. I can tell you that if anything was pushed on you against your better judgment and your own personal values system and belief system, your own internal landscape that does not mix with those concepts. And it's, again, it is an energy. It is, see, I describe, and you may not subscribe to this, this school of thought, and that's fine. You know, I want you to be authentic to your own inner being. My inner being has known that these things are so in contrast with what my inner being is. It's not what it believes and what it thinks, it's what it is, which is love, light, truth, compassion, and human decency, the big five. So and that doesn't mean we never get it wrong. Of course we do. We are humans. We have humanness. We are creatures who have mistakes and foibles and flaws, and I embrace those. What we're talking about is what's done with intention to harm. That's what is the little nugget at the center of this, is intention to harm through mind control, thought control, behavior control, relationship control, idea control, belief control, if I hadn't already said it. So when we begin to have awareness that this was done to us, and we absolutely can go into a trauma response and say, hey, that, you know what, was never mine, and they had no right to force theirs inside of me so that I can live that way unconsciously. Well, yes, you know, I personally believe that everything is energy. I believe that every single thing that we can ever experience in our entire world is all on a frequency, and each individual thing is on its own frequency. And therefore, you know, if you take it, we're going to go in the direction of the woo for a minute and go into just basic physics. Okay, the scientific truth is that every single thing in our experience that we can see, smell, feel, you know, hear, see, smell, touch, or taste, everything that we can experience has a vibrational frequency. And so when we look at the solid things in our world, and it can be, you know, like the stone that's behind me on my, I'll point to it. This stone right here that I painted a long time ago. I painted that stone. What we get is a feeling of solidness when we touch these things or hold these things or experiencing these things. You know, my tripod is solid. The chair that I'm sitting in is solid. I'm solid. Nope. That's the mind-bendy part right there. No, because if we look at an atom, and this is old proven science, this is from a long time ago. We look at an atom, and we know that everything that we can touch is made up of atoms. Everything that we breathe is made up of atoms. And if we look at an atom under, well, you'd have to have a very high powered microscope to do it, but it's been done, and they know that an atom is made up of almost entirely space. The minute particles where you have, you know, a nucleus and electrons zipping around it, all of these atoms are made up of mostly space. And so when we have something that is solid and we're touching it, and it's densely packed atoms, but each atom is mostly space, and it's vibrating at a frequency. And we feel that we are solid, but we're not. We're not solid. It's been proven billions of times that we are temporary. Your physical vessel is temporary, and it is not solid. It's just the illusion of being solid. And so when I think about how we are not solid and we are mostly everything, like I said, is an illusion of solidness. Everything's on a frequency that's old science. We know that. So everything that's happening to us is also a frequency. It's all a vibrational frequency. And so I can reconcile this behavior from people who had an effect on me and were responsible for the upbringing and the care and the development of me. I can look at their behaviors, their thoughts, their ideas, their prejudices, and their withholding of love and compassion for other human beings based on their faulty, flawed premise that they have the right to do that. That's all frequency. That's all energy. And it is exactly, it is what I call low vibrational energy people, or low vibrational people. Because when you get into the higher vibrational realms, those things don't exist. And that's how come a person who is a person of love, light, truth, compassion, and human decency is so bothered by those things, because we are vibrating at a higher frequency where that stuff can't exist. We can't go there and feel those things. We simply cannot, because it goes against who and what we are. Love, light, truth, compassion, and human decency. Those are things that I can embody, but at the same time, it's also what I know that I am. Yes, I make mistakes. Yes, I do non-compassionate things sometimes. I do non-loving things sometimes. I do things that are pretty dark. Sometimes they're not from the light. But if I know the difference, and I'm aware, I have self-awareness that I come up short some of those times, then yes, I am still a big 5 individual, because of the self-awareness and the knowledge that no, I don't want to do those things. I prefer to do the things that are a much a clearer vibrational match, an accurate vibrational match to who and what I am. And so that is how come, even on the most basic atomic level, my parents' information, it is safe for me to reject it. It is safe for me to hand that back to them now and say, that garbage was never mine. I never accepted it. I was play acting so that I could have your love and approval and acceptance and your compassion and your kindness, even if it meant being breadcrumbed with it and only getting a little bit of it once in a while, instead of as a regular, satisfying, wonderful, steady diet of it. Wanted those things. I did not always get those things, but I now understand with just a little tiny piece of information about vibrational energy. I know that my parents were in a lower vibrational mode and I couldn't synchronize with them. I couldn't attune with them because we weren't a close vibrational match. They were where they were in vibration, and I was a little bit higher frequency vibration, and I wasn't going down there. I wasn't going to slow down and lower my vibrational energy in order to please them. And what I did was I pretended, essentially, that I did that. And it was a very, very, very expensive thing for a child to have to pay in order to feel loved a little bit, sometimes inconsistently. So those of you who have experienced this form of trauma, the family prejudice trauma, the requirement to be prejudiced or at least be exposed to another person's prejudices, there's work we can do. A lot of the things that I talk about most definitely come back to the concept of reparenting ourselves. It is a really, for me, it has been, I can't say what it would be for you, but for me, it has been a really wonderful process of cleansing. It feels like taking a shower with the purest, hand-milled, beautiful, fragrant, lovely, enriching soap. That's what it feels like when we reparent ourselves. You can even do a visual for yourself, an actual action of taking a shower or a bath with the intention of saying, this is what I'm focusing on right now. And this is what I'm actually going to do a little bit of a purification for myself about. You might want to do things with intention, such as just saying a little meditation with yourself about how this was never yours, it was always theirs, and I'm going to symbolically hand it back to them. And I have literally done this more than once, doing the shower where I go in and this is my intentional shower, and I'm letting the beliefs that were not mine go actually right down the drain. And as Melanie Tonya Evans refers to, when we give back the things that weren't ours, we can release them into the nothingness. And that is one of my ways of doing that, is releasing that back into the nothingness. It just doesn't exist in this body anymore. It's just not in here. It is not clinging in my inner world as something that I still get activated about. Well, I showed today here. I showed you. I am still activated about it. I love knowing that. I love it when my body gives me the feedback that tells me, oh, Lynn, you have a little bit more work to do on that. It's not all gone. There's still some there. And I might live every day of the rest of my life with that activation still present. But it's nothing compared to what it used to be before doing the trauma work, to talk about it, meaning naming it, and then accepting that it happened, not accepting that I liked it, not accepting that it was okay with me in any way. Acceptance just simply means, yeah, that happened. There's nothing more to it than that. Doesn't mean agreement. It doesn't mean allowance. Doesn't mean permission. Just means, yeah, it happened and I have awareness of it. Okay. After that, that's one of the biggest parts of it. And then after that, then we can go on and do the healing work, because now we have named it and we have accepted that it happened. and we know that it's still actively within us, in our inner landscape, and that we now have the implements, we have the tools, we have the techniques, we have the knowledge, we have the understandings, and we have the groundedness with which to make a choice. We get to make a choice for ourselves, and this is pulling our autonomy right back in. It's within us. And we can embrace. This is my little guy, just came over to say hello. There's the little Nemo, little brother, Nemski, the Nemonator. Isn't he lovely? I'm so proud of you, little man. I am. You're such a beauty. You're such a good boy. I hope it made your day a little bit brighter to see the Nemo. His face used to be black. He's just absolutely stunning. He has one brown eye and one blue eye. He wants me to keep doing this. Okay, I'll give you some more in a minute, babe. Okay. So what? He's the most polite little fella you'd ever want to meet. So what we are doing is when we're recognizing that we can change our inner landscape, we can give ourselves the support that we need. We can do some reparenting. We can do some ceremonies with ourselves. Something where we say with intention, this is what I'm letting go of, and this is my process today. I'm going to do something that feels absolutely delicious to myself while I do it with intention. It works the best. It is so much more beneficial to us to do that release through doing something that is personally wonderful to us. And if you are at a place right now where you don't have anything that feels like it's personally wonderful for you to do, some of us might have become so used to feeling awful that we just can't get to that place of, oh yeah, I'm going to do something wonderful for myself right now. I'm going to release some of my trauma. No, I understand. My heart's with you. My heart's with you. And don't feel ashamed or wrong or faulty. If you aren't in that place right now where you can't just happily go do some sort of trauma release work for yourself. No, if you can't do it, then the easiest, safest thing that you can do for yourself is to just don't worry about getting rid of anything just yet. If you're at the very beginning of this and you are really struggling with feelings of, I literally can't do anything. We call that, we might call that a freeze response. You know, a person could have a freeze response to their trauma where they just, I can't do a thing. I'm shocked that I'm even watching this video because I normally just can't get to that place of being able to do anything about this. Then the concepts that we need in those times, in those moments, is number one, above all, safety for yourself, where you just do some exercises of grounding and mindfulness. That's where you begin. Just being present with yourself. No work to be done. Just presence with yourself. And you might be able to go into that mode of self-compassion very gently and say just one thing, or write on a little piece of paper or a note card, just 2 words. Just 2 words to yourself where you can say, yeah, I know I was forced to feel feelings against other people. So you could just write down the word controlled. And you might write down the word prejudice. and then just put it away. You don't have to do anything more for that. You just write those two things down. And then you could say, the rest of today, I'm going to have compassion for myself. It might not be what I normally do, but today I'm going to find 2 ways that I could be compassionate with myself. And then do them. It might be, well, I haven't brushed my teeth today, but I'm going to do that right now for myself with compassion for myself. What do I mean by that? While I'm actually preparing the toothbrush to put in my mouth, I'm going to just pause for a second and say, I'm doing this because I'm compassionate with myself right now. And then later on, you might go pour yourself a glass of water, or you might get a cup of coffee or your favorite tea or whatever it is. And just while you're preparing it, say, I'm doing this because I'm compassionate with myself. And that's literally all there is to that. If compassion for the self is an activity, a feeling, a state of being that you have very little familiarity with, that's how you build it. There is no big, huge ta-da moment. There's no big, huge action that you're supposed to do to get to self-compassion. It starts with doing little tiny things, maybe once or twice a day, until we become more comfortable with them. And the more we feel relaxed and at ease and comfortable with the idea of self-compassion, the more self-compassion flows to you. It flows into you. And I had a time in my life where my inner critic was so severely upset with me that I could not get to a place of self-compassion. I just couldn't. And a couple very, very special people taught me that self-compassion is started in baby steps, and then it's gradually increased because the fact that you were able to do it a couple times proves that you can. And when you can, that's when you recognize that you can, when it just happened, you just did it. And then you go, oh, okay, well, that wasn't so bad. I guess I can do that again. And so we do. But my self-compassion a few years ago was so low. Some people call it depression. No, it was I had no compassion for myself. I couldn't see myself as a person who was worthy of compassion in any way. And so my self-care completely dropped off. And at one point, I was only bathing once every 2 to 3 weeks. Wasn't doing my oral care. I wasn't laundering my clothes. I wasn't wearing jewelry. I did not care about this person. I was self-abandoning. And the self-abandonment for me was based in complete and total lack of compassion for myself. I was my own worst critic. And then one day, through a whole bunch of different incidents, I began to recognize someone literally took me by the hand, walked me down a hallway, and said, I'm just going to go with you to the shower. I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to be with you. I'm not going to look at you. I'm going to be on a chair right outside that shower. And you can take a shower. You can care about yourself. So I did. And that kind of broke the dam for me. It made it so that one empathetic, compassionate person cared how I felt and cared whether or not I had compassion for myself. So she didn't give it to me. She assisted me to find it for myself. And for me, the activity of taking a shower after about 3 weeks of having not showered, which was a regular cycle of mine. But my previous shower, I can promise you, was not done because I had compassion for myself. It was done because I stunk. It was done because I knew that I did not smell nice. So I'm here with you to show you that no matter what has happened to you, no matter what you have experienced, no matter what anybody has programmed you with, downloaded you with, influenced you with, if it wasn't yours, and you have conscious awareness that it wasn't yours, this is the way that you begin to heal it. If you have these types of traumas where you were expected to, or if you were programmed to have to please another person through doing something such as prejudice or mistreatment of other people, just through thought or just through beliefs, and then occasionally behaviors either up close or from a distance, it wasn't your stuff. It wasn't you. And right now, you can have that moment of awareness for yourself. You create it. I create it. And a moment of awareness for myself where I say, you are good. You are kind. You are empathetic. You are compassionate. Well, you are love, light, truth, compassion, and human decency. And if it had been up to me in my childhood, those things would not have existed. Those ideas and thoughts and beliefs and false premise beliefs would not have existed. I would not have chosen to live in a world where those things exist. I would have chosen to live in a world where they were never, ever dreamed of in the first place. But we were a child. And what happened to us in childhood absolutely can be healed. And that's our work when we're doing trauma recovery. I hope that if you found value in this video, that you will share it with your friends. I would love to remind you, as usual, that self-care is never, ever selfish. It is our birthright, and it is beautiful, and it's good, and it's right. And so I also want you to know that you are infinitely worthy of your own trauma recovery. If you were interested in working with me, Lin Bouthillier, I am a certified trauma recovery coach, and I would love to work with you in one-on-one certified trauma recovery coaching. And you can find me at my website, which is linbouthillier.com, and it's spelled LinBouthillier. It's in my channel heading. If you just go to my channel at the top and click on my channel. There's a clickable link there for you. So you can just go right on through to linbouthillier.com and have a look there. You can email me through the website or just right through your email system. You can go to lin@linbouthillier.com, spelled the same way. And I hope that if you're looking for a certified trauma recovery coach, that you will give me a call or send me an email, because I would absolutely love to work with you. So have the very best day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.